Okay, so as we do chapter 3, I'm going to break it up into 2 parts because chapter 3 is probably one of our longest chapters that we covered. All right, so we started chapter 3 by looking at calculating statistics for data sets. So you can have a data set that's a raw data set like this and be asked to find the mean, the median, the mode, the range, the variance, and the standard deviation. So you would want to be prepared to do all of those calculations on a data set that looks like this. So remember, for the mean, you're just adding the numbers up and dividing by however many you have. So if I add these numbers together, I get 47. I would divide by 6 and round it to 2 decimal places unless the test tells you different. So 7.83 is what I would get there. All right, so then I would need to calculate the median. Remember, the median is the number in the middle, and you have to put these things in order. So I would go through and order my data set. So let's see, I have 3, 4, 4. And then I have 9, 12, and 15. So your median is either one particular value that sits in the middle, or in this case, because we have an even number of values, it's going to be the number that's halfway in between the 4 and the 9. So I would add those two numbers together, divide by 2. 13 divided by 2 is going to give me 6.5. All right, so for the mode, you're looking at the value that occurs most often. There are 2 4s, but nothing else is repeated, so the mode's going to be 4. If it asks for the range, you're going to do the highest minus the lowest. We've talked about that back in chapter 2. So 15 minus 3 is equal to 12. And you have your range. All right, variance and standard deviation. At this point, we have talked about how to put this in the calculator and get the variance and the standard deviation. So that would be totally fine if you wanted to go that route. If you don't do it that way and you're working it out by hand, remember that you are going to go through and square all your numbers and add them up. So I'm going to do 3 squared plus 4 squared plus 4 squared plus 9 squared plus 12 squared plus 15 squared. And I'm going to type it in my calculator just like that. And that's going to give me 491, so that's my larger sum. And then I'm going to subtract my smaller sum, which was the 47, what I got when I just added the numbers up together, squared, divided by 6 because there's 6 values, and then divided by 5 because on the formula it's going to say 1 less on the bottom. All right, so when I plug that in my calculator, 24.57. And then remember, for your standard deviation, you're going to take the square root of that. All right, and that gives you 4.96. So again, on a problem like this, you should feel free to put these in your calculator if you know how to do that and get those answers out, and that's going to be totally fine, okay? All right, so you also have a grouped frequency distribution where we're going to see doing most of the same calculations. Mean and mode and variance and standard deviation is what you would be looking at here. This is really important, okay? So be sure that you have this kind of problem worked out in your notes so that you can reference this really quick if you lose track of your steps. All right, remember that first you need to find your midpoints for each class. And so midpoints can be found by adding the 2 boundaries together and then dividing by 2. So the first one would be like 7.5 plus 12.5 divided by 2. So I'm going to go ahead and jot my midpoints down here just kind of in the interest of time. All right, the next thing you need to do is midpoint times frequency. All right, so I'm going to let these be my x values. So I'm going to make a column for x times f. And this is where on the first one I would do 10 times 3. is 30. 15 times 5 is 75. 20 times 15 is 300. 25 times 5 is 125. 30 times 2 is 60. Remember that you're going to add up any column that has a frequency value in it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sum up that column. All right, that gives me 590. And while I'm adding, I'm also going to go ahead and add up this frequency column over here because I know I'm going to need that. That's going to be 30. All right, so right now I could find the mean if I wanted to by taking 590 and dividing by 30. And that gives me 19.67. We do not find the median on a grouped frequency distribution. So the only other thing I could ask you for a central tendency value would be the mode. Remember, on the mode, you're looking for the one with the highest frequency. So this 15 is the highest frequency. So I would say that my mode was the class from 17.5 to 22.5. Okay, if I ask you for variance and standard deviation, you need to add 2 more columns to this problem. You need a column for the midpoint squared, and then you need a column for midpoint squared times the frequency. All right, so midpoint squared, I'm going to square 10 and get 100. Square 15, I'll get 225. Square 20, I'll get 400. Square 25, I'll get 625. Square 30, and I'm going to get 900. And then I'm going to multiply those squared values back times this frequency column. So these 2 columns multiplied together. 3 times 100 is 300. 5 times 225 is 1125. 15 times 400 is 6,000. 5 times 625 is 3125. And 2 times 900 is 1,800. And again, that is a column that has an F in it. So I'm going to go ahead and add that up. All right, 12,350. And so now I am ready to do my formula for variance because I have my larger sum. All right, so variance, I'm going to do my bigger sum minus the smaller sum squared. So 12,350 minus 590 squared divided by the number of values, which is 30, divided by 1 less, which would be 29. All right, and so I'm going to put that in my calculator. That gives me 25.75 for my variance. And then remember, for standard deviation, you'll take the square root of that. So your standard deviation would be 5.07. All right, so again, I'm pretty certain that you're going to see something like this on the final. So be sure that you are able to take a grouped frequency distribution and find those 4 statistics: mean, mode, variance, and standard deviation. Okay,